October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe, we're proud to stand with the survivors, the fighters, and the families who inspire us every single day. And while we honor their strength, we're also helping you with the strength to save with special dealer offers. Like a new Ford F-150 XLT, save with 3.9% APR financing for 72 months. Or a new Ford Bronco Sport, lease for just $399 a month at Capitol Ford in Santa Fe.
And welcome into a special edition of the Pit Press. We'll probably release this a little bit later on, but today we're fortunate enough to be joined by the head coach of your New Mexico football Lobos, Coach Jason Eck. Coach, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Appreciate you guys having me on.
We will jump right into it. Last year, this team was 5-7, one game away from a bowl game. And this year, you're bowl eligible, and November just started. One, how does it feel? And two, being able to take this team, elevating them to bowl eligibility with the fewest returning players in the FBS. What is the single most important culture shift, not scheme change, that allowed this team with so many new faces buy in and achieve the goal so quickly?
I think it was really Eric focusing on relationships. We had to really work hard on coming together as a team, getting to know each other, whether it was, player to player, player to coach, and really building that trust and that, care for one another, where you want to, play really hard for your teammates and not let each other down. I think that was one of the big keys. And, we set out as a goal, to improve off last year. To me, with the team winning 5 games last year, I figured if we won 5 or less, it's like, why the heck did you hire me and bring me in here? You brought me in here for a reason, to get this program better. So it feels good to accomplish that and get us to bowl eligibility. But certainly the season, the mission isn't accomplished yet. We got 3 great opportunities coming up, starting with Colorado State, and we got to continue to strain to get better.
Now, I think it's safe to say that you guys have kind of redefined what success means for this football program, what it means for Albuquerque. I mean, for a team that hasn't been to a bowl game since 2016, now that you guys reached 6 wins, and it's only November, describe the foundation that you guys have laid here. And then for you guys, what's the internal measure of success? Simply getting the bowl wins and not getting complacent. There's still a long season to go, and I know you guys are still targeting more wins down the road.
Yeah, we talk a lot about, championship behavior as our foundation, and some of the pillars of that, our accountability, doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, toughness, urgency, grit. And again, I think we've made some great progress on that. Certainly we're not content, to have 6 wins now. And I told the team this week, I've always thought that, teams that are like 6-6 and go to a bowl game, then you lose the bowl game. It's not a very good season. That's a losing record. So we have a lot more to accomplish, and it starts with this Colorado State game. I've heard they beat us 13 straight times, so that doesn't sit well with me.
Coach, the last couple of weeks, I think everyone would agree the team's maybe turned a corner and played its best football the last 2 weeks. Is there something you can pinpoint as to what's gone right the last 2 weeks? Is it just a matter of winning the turnover margin, or what do you see has kind of taken place and taken hold of the team the last few weeks?
Well, I think it's probably the result of a lot of weeks of effort and a lot of weeks of grit of working towards our goal long term. There's some things that we focused on, such as the turnover margin, that we didn't. We emphasized it, but we weren't seeing the immediate results. And that's how life is sometimes. You don't always see just direct immediate results. But if you keep putting in sustained effort towards those goals, sometimes you get those tipping points where it does get right. And, I told the team that, after, our first, I guess it was after 5 games. Maybe it wasn't after 5 games. I think it was after the Nevada game, because we were truly last in the country after the Nevada game in turnover margin. And, that's what I said. I said, it's amazing. It was after 5 games, because we were 3-2. And I said, hey, we're 1 game over 500. Imagine what we could be if we win the turnover margin the rest of the way. and we certainly did that. And we've had good success.
Ed.
Coach, the transfer portal, brilliantly, you used it to build a 6-win roster immediately. But I think you probably agree, true fundamental growth relies on developing high school recruits. How do you balance the immediate need for talent? And this is a test for every coach in the country via the portal with a long-term goal of recruiting and retaining a sustainable core of high school players.
Yeah, it is a balancing act, Ed. And again, we had to go a little heavier than we wanted to the portal last year, and that was just really a byproduct of us, taking the job when we already had 39 players in the portal or something like that. And for us to have any veteran and experience, we had to add some guys who were transferring. A lot of those guys are transferring up from lower levels. I do think still the bread and butter, you want to do a great job developing guys. We have 4 freshmen who played quite a bit for us this year. CJ McBean, who started a lot of games. Jay Martassi, who's started last week at guard. Ziel Smith's played a lot at wide receiver for us. Ja Torres has played a lot on special teams, some at corner. And, I think the exciting thing when you have guys like that is they do a great job for you this year, and then you have, 3 years left with them. The negative of the transfer portal, we had some great hits in the transfer portal, like, Damon Bankston, what a year, he's had for us. But, Damon now his eligibility is up, and I think he's going to have some opportunities to play football here after he's done with us. But I do like the fact of trying to, find high school guys that we can develop and grow.
Go ahead, Greg.
Coach, I know you were asked at the press conference about, thinking about a conference championship, and I know you wisely sidestepped that because there are 8 teams that have 2 losses or fewer in the conference. But how much pride do you take in being one of the 4 teams in the hunt and waving that Mountain West banner to show your recruits and fans that the Mountain West will be just fine without the 5 teams leaving for the Pac-12?
Yeah, I take pride in that. I mean, I think you look at the standings in our conference right now, and the top 6 teams, 3 are staying and 3 are going. So it clearly is not a deal where all the best teams are leaving. Half of the top teams are leaving and half are staying. And again, I got pride for being in this conference. Again, the people I've never probably have turned me off the most in life are the people who kind of act like they're better than people. And I think there's an element of those teams. They thought they were better than New Mexico. So, playing teams like Utah State or like Colorado State coming up, I think that adds a little extra motivation to try to knock somebody off who thinks they're better than you.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, I want to say, I think that your coaching philosophy really emphasizes the deeper purpose of player development. Looking back at the UNLV victory, which player's performance or multiple players' performances there in the 4th quarter game-winning drive most clearly validated what you're trying to instill in the off-the-field culture and translating it to the on-field success?
Yeah, I think guys that stand out to me, or like you look at like Jack Lane. Jack has a mistake in the game where he throws an interception that goes for a touchdown, but he battles back right away. He throws an 80-yard touchdown to Keegan the next series, and then that last series he was on the money throwing the ball to Keegan. Keegan was very consistent, made a ton of big plays that last series. Some of them where he's getting fouled, there's pass interference as well, and he's still catching the ball. And then the defense did a great job. Tavian Combs, you look at him. You talk about grit. He's in the 6th year with the program. He's been here all the way back to the year where the team had to go to Las Vegas to play. I think he's the only guy left from that. And, he breaks up a key 4th down conversion at the end of the game. So that's a great example of grit for him. He's battled injuries over a number of years and kept fighting to get to the position he's in today.
I got a couple questions for you, Coach. James Lobstein, what's his status? It's a bye weekend. He took 8 carries for 99 yards. I thought every one of those yards was very important. He took a pop at the end of the game. What's his status? It's a bye week now. What's his status for next week against Colorado State?
We're not quite sure yet. James is a tough guy. He's a physical runner. He certainly helped their offense a lot, and he's rehabbing like crazy. And we hope to get him back here soon.
Big wins, and Coach, it's a bye week, and I think it's a good time for a bye week and two big successive wins against Utah State and then UNLV. But how do you make sure your team doesn't face a letdown or complacency hangover during the bye week? You mentioned New Mexico has not beat Colorado State since 2008. So how do you prevent your team from having that lull and that bye week? And you said you wanted 25,000 out there at University Stadium next Saturday, but how do you prevent your team from having fallen into that complacency or hangover?
Yeah, it's about your preparation, and I think we went about it pretty well this week. We had two good practices on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then our varsity guys, our veterans, had a lift this morning, but then they really have, we're off practice for 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is, I thought, just, this point in the season, I thought what their bodies needed. But we got to come back and prepare our tails off. I think we have an edge in this game, the fact that we can be the fresher team. Colorado State's got to play a good UNLV team this week. So we got to come back fresh, practice our tail off, push ourselves, and really focus about us. When you're playing, teams late in the year, you can't get caught up into trying to figure out how is Colorado State going to play? Are they, fighting like hell? Are they mailing it in? You can't control that, but we can control how hard we play and the effort and the focus we play with. And I think that's going to be a critical factor in this game. And our team will not take this team lightly. And again, I'll make sure we get their attention with the fact that, obviously when a team's beat you 13 times in a row, I don't think you can ever chalk something up as that's like a gimme game for us all of a sudden. No, we got to play our tails off. And Colorado State, I think as you watch their tape, they have a lot of good players. We got to play well.
Greg,
you talked about at the press conference about how this bye week, it's important for recruiting, and we're asked about the change in reception you were getting from recruits. And so in general, how different a reaction are you getting from fans, from recruits, from whoever you talk to about Lobo football, as opposed to spring football in the summer when nobody knew what this program was going to be, and now you're 6-3?
I think there's definitely been a bit of boost to that, and some more reception. And again, I think we picked up 2 commitments of guys who we were recruiting in the summer, decided to go to someplace else, and then decided to come here instead. And I think a part of that was how we have played this year. So it's definitely, I think, been a boost. And obviously college football is a lot different than the NFL that way. In the NFL, the more you win, the worse you draft. In college football, usually the better you do, the more you can attract good players. So we're trying to take advantage of that. And we have coaches, all over here starting tonight, tonight, tomorrow, and even some games on Saturday. But we'll have coaches in Texas, California, Arizona. Even we have one coach going all the way up to Chicago. So we will be hitting the road hard this week.
And how has your life changed, Coach, since all of the success has happened? I mean, I know I saw you at the basketball game last night. How much of a demand, or more of a demand, is there of your time? I know you put out a video, I think it was before the Utah State game, where you and some players went into a lowrider to the song lowrider and went and passed out tickets at Frontier. So is there more demand of your time? Do you feel like that's something as the head of the program you need to do? Or is that something when you do a video like that it allows you to blow off a little steam and be yourself and get away from coaching?
Yeah, I think I think one of my jobs as a head coach is I got to be constantly promoting and selling this program. And I think part of, to me, turning a program around is winning games, but part of it, I think, is getting people excited and connecting with the community and getting them involved. And I'm hoping that things like that can help us, have a great crowd, of 25 to 30,000 people in University Stadium next Saturday. So, there's a few more, I don't think it's a huge difference. I mean, probably a few more people recognize me at the basketball game than when I went to the basketball games last year. But again, I appreciate, our fans who support us, and, a lot of people are wishing me well, and, I'd rather have that than, they think I'm doing a terrible job and they're putting for sale signs in my yard.
Coach, it's a different culture, and, all due respect to Coach Mendenhall, he won 5 games here in his first year, but I think everyone probably agree it's just a different culture and a different accepting, encouraging, inviting people into the program. And I think that's been shown by the results on the field. But I got to ask you this, your son, Jackson Eck, and he's your son, and you've got to be proud. Ned James, the Lobo color analyst on KKOB, says, Jackson puts everybody in alignment, calls the signals, calls the defensive signals. Greg Archuleta wrote a great article saying it was going to come down to better defensive play on the defensive line, and your son has been a big part of that. How proud of you. Sometimes you have to dial it back. He's a one of 73, and we get it. But sometimes you have to say to yourself, I'm sure you got to be pretty proud of your son. He's played very well for the Lobos this year.
No, he's played great. I'm very, I'm proud of him as a coach, like I am all the players, but also proud as a dad. And I think it's a testament to his, really to his work ethic. I think he's continued to get better. He had a heck of a year, last season, when we were at Idaho, and he was able to build on that now. He hasn't, I think he's gotten better. I think he's playing faster. I think he's really worked hard to understand this new defense, and he does a great job of getting his teammates, lined up, communicating when we check, when we change things. And I think he's a steadying force in there. And then he's been around the ball. I think I saw a graphic. He's, like in the top 10, in the country in tackles right now. So that's a heck of a, achievement. And, just proud of him. He's playing his tail off and doing a great job.
You're on mute, Eric.
Coach, want to address the elephant in the room. I know that they asked this at the press conference earlier in the week, but just defining the something amazing, right? Something that an amazing opportunity that might pull you away from New Mexico. But I think what us New Mexicans, people here in Albuquerque, are interested in keeping you here at New Mexico. Now, what does something amazing mean to you here in New Mexico, given the success in year one? What has New Mexico shown you now in terms of commitment, resources, facility upgrades, fan support? What does that look like going forward?
Well, I think we have a pretty amazing, job here. And again, I think we're, working our way up in the group of 5 ranks. I know there's some, some places on websites that put out on like Twitter and stuff, the top 25 group of 5 teams. And, I think I've seen us recently, we're like in the top 15 right now. And, to me, I think your goal at New Mexico is going to be to win the Mountain West Conference, which we haven't done in a while. And then, have a shot to get to the college football playoff, which it's challenging because there's only really one team that's going to be getting in that playoff going forward. And I think the way it's shaping up this year, it'll probably be a team from the American Conference that's going to be the favorite that way. But I think we have a very, very good job here. We love it here. I do think, you got to evaluate things for your family and stuff when they come along. But, to me, you look at like the Pac-12 conference, that doesn't excite me at all. I don't think that's a better conference, things like that. If Alabama or Ohio State calls you, you probably should pick up the phone and listen, to those people. Now they haven't been calling, obviously they got great coaches and things, but I try to be realistic about it, and kind of the same thoughts I have with, with our players. And I hope we can retain a lot of those guys. I hope we can keep growing our resources, that we could be one of the top teams in the group of 5 every year and retain a lot of our players. But, I'm realistic. I don't foresee in my, coaching tenure us playing, players $1 million like, some of the SEC schools and Big Ten schools are these days. And, again, if we had a player who got to that point where they, probably could make $1 million on the open market at one of those spots, again, I would be hard pressed to try to convince him to stay, because that can be some life-changing, things for their family and things. So, bottom line, we love it here. I have not talked to anybody. Again, I have an agent who handles that. And, again, we're not looking at all, we love it here. We want to keep building this thing to make it as good as it can be. And, there'll be time after the season for our players and coaches to evaluate, where things are at in their career. But it's good to be at a place where you feel comfortable, your family loves it. And, I could certainly see myself being here a long time.
And Coach, along those lines, and I asked you on Tuesday about the things that you saw that you think that you could win here. And thanks for humoring me, because I know you also said that at your introductory press conference before. But moving forward, is there one or two specific areas where you think there's opportunity for growth specifically with the UNM program to take you to that next level? Is it changing the culture of transport where you don't have to ask for 25 to 30,000 people to come to the stadium after you've won 3 in a row?
Yeah, I think long-term, our stadium currently is not a long-term solution. Again, and I think we have to figure out a good plan. I know they're actively working on that on campus. I think, and again, a lot of it is the fan experience. Just things have changed. You think of all the things that have changed since University Stadium has built. That was before cell phones and before internet access, and just there's a lot of things I think people expect and kind of like to have on a football Saturday that maybe you can get at home watching games that you can't get coming to a stadium that was built in the late 50s, early 60s. So I think that is something long term for New Mexico that I think wants to be improved. And again, I think we have some of the teams. Thankfully, a lot of those teams are leaving the league that have done recent upgrades to their stadium, whether it's Colorado State and San Diego State. So we won't compete with them quite as much in recruiting, though we still will see them. And then I think really for everybody in the group of 5, because really all the power 4 schools are at the cap for rev share. And I don't think there's any group of 5 school that's at the cap. I think for any group of 5 school, it's continuing to grow that, just to grow your resources for player retention, because certainly the more resources you have, the better you should perform. And again, I'm not afraid to say that. I mean, I had more resources for this year's team than Coach Mendenhall had for last year's team. We should do better than what he had, and we got to keep growing that, because the problem that's a little tricky in college football right now is when you do well and you win at New Mexico where you haven't won in a while, people are going to start looking and saying, hey, well, they're winning at New Mexico now. They must have some pretty good players over there. Let's take a look at those guys and see if we can snatch a few of them over there. And, I'm realistic. I don't think we're always going to be able to retain everybody, but I'm hoping that we can retain a majority of our players that have eligibility coming back.
Coach, your running back room was touted as being very deep this season. When you signed Scottrey Humphrey, I remember reading in the paper thinking, man, that's a great signing. How did we get him? But DJ McKinney and Damon Bankston had played very well. With 3 games left, do you still think, Scottrey Humphrey had 1 carry for 1 yard, and DJ McKinney a 13-yard run, and Bankston 155 yards of receiving? Do you still think Scottrey Humphrey with 3 games left, is there still some juice in with so the carries you're going to give him the rest of the year?
Yeah, you know what? I think all those guys have tremendous value to the team, and I'm proud of those guys because I think they're unselfish. They're more concerned about the team winning than their individual stats. And last week, for instance, a lot of times when James Lobstein was in, Scottrey was the back who was in there with him, just because Scottrey is the biggest guy. And if we were running James, we were using him as a blocker. So I think they all have key roles. We're going to count on them all. We're going to try to ride the hot hand. Obviously, Damon had some huge receptions last week. DJ had that big run to take the lead. And, we believe in Scottrey as well. I think all those guys down the stretch are going to need to have big plays for us. But it's good to have depth, and we're going to play the hot hand. We're going to play the guy who can help us win.
We are talking with the New Mexico football head coach, Jason Eck. Coach Eck, we want to thank you again for joining us here at the Pit Press. Again, congratulate you too on a successful season. Still a long road ahead. We'll be rooting for you, but thanks for taking the time. We appreciate you.
Hey, appreciate it, Eric, Ed, and Greg. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Goes up.